listening to The Standard Angler, and my daddy's the host.
All right, well, special thanks to my sweetheart for the introduction, and welcome to the Sustainable Angler Podcast. I'm Rick Crawford, angler, sustainability consultant, and founder of Emerger Strategies. This season, we're launching the Sustainability Blueprint, a deep dive into how fishing and outdoor brands can grow, meet retailer demands, navigate emerging regulations, and protect the places we all love. If you're part of the fishing and outdoor industry, this is your roadmap to surviving and thriving in a changing world. Let's build better brands and protect what we love together. Today on The Sustainable Angler, I'm joined by sustainability expert, author, and speaker Bob Willard, one of the leading voices on making the business case for sustainability. We talk about insights from his book, The Sustainability Advantage, how sustainability reduces costs, attracts and retains talent, and most importantly, helps businesses avoid risk. Bob also shares how to use cost-benefit analysis to evaluate sustainability projects, along with his open source assessment tools, the Future Fit Business Benchmark, and his work with B Corps. We also swap sustainability success stories, discuss why sustainability feels so overwhelming, and what gives Bob hope for the future. And before we dive into the interview, I just want to say thank you. I'm truly grateful that you take the time to listen to this podcast. I hope these conversations inspire you to take action for nature. If you're enjoying the show, a quick free way to support it is by leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. The Sustainable Angler is available anywhere you listen to podcasts and is also airing Saturdays at 2 p.m. on Charleston's first and only community-supported radio station, OWN Radio, 96.3 FM. This episode of The Sustainable Angler is brought to you by Emerger Strategies, Ecolytics, and a New Earth Project, the sustainability initiative of Atlantic Packaging. Hey everybody, Rick Crawford here. If you're running a fishing or outdoor brand, you probably got into this business for the freedom, a desire to work in an industry that you actually care about, and to protect what you love, not wrestle with sustainability scorecards and compliance regulations. But here's the truth. Retailers and regulators are paying close attention, and the brands that can answer clearly are the ones that keep their products on the shelf. That's where Emerger Strategies comes in. We help brands get retailer and regulator ready, and we help you make the business case for sustainability, so compliance strengthens your brand instead of slowing it down. That's why I built the Compliance Ready Brand Blueprint. It's a clear, practical roadmap that shows you what matters, what's coming, and gets your sustainability house in order in 30 days. If you want to protect your brand, your margins, and what you love, you'll find the blueprint at emergerstrategies.com. If you're running a fishing, outdoor, food, or apparel brand, sustainability isn't just marketing. It's directly tied to the landscapes, waterways, and communities your business depends on. But actually tracking and improving your impact can get complicated fast. Ecolytics is a software platform that helps values-driven companies measure and manage their environmental and social impact all in one place. Ecolytics helps replace scattered spreadsheets with a clear system for tracking things like emissions, sourcing practices, and social impact, so you know where you stand and what to improve next. They specialize in helping companies pursue B Corps certification, one of the most rigorous and respected standards for business sustainability. What I appreciate is that Ecolytics works hand in hand with sustainability consultants, including folks like me. That means companies get expert guidance and a platform that keeps the work organized, credible, and audit ready. Whether you're exploring B Corps certification or just getting started with sustainability as a business, Ecolytics turns your good intentions into measurable action. To learn more, visit ecolytics.io. That's ECOLYTICS.io. and mention the Sustainable Angler podcast to get a discount on your first year subscription. Thanks to Ecolytics for supporting the show and for supporting businesses that protect the places we love.
I'm looking forward to this. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So, Bob, I thought we would get things kicked off for those who are not sustainability nerds, such as myself. But I to provide a little bit of context, I have read your books. I follow your work. I'm a subscriber of your website, the sustainabilityadvantage.com. But for those folks who are not sustainability nerds, could you provide a little bit about your professional background and how you got into sustainability?
Sure. And it wasn't a very direct path either. It was just a bunch of, as usual, random occurrences that got me a little bit more aware of some of the challenges we have. So for 34 years, I worked in IBM Canada in a variety of positions, none of which actually had anything to do with sustainability. It had to do with marketing, product support, leadership development, those kinds of things, but nothing that specifically focused on sustainability. But while I was in IBM in the 1990s, in our community, a local community, we started to experience some concerns about the quality of our water. And my wife and I started to take action to try to improve that situation. And we spent about 3 years trying to get our local government, the provincial government, the federal government, the International Joint Commission to help with that. And frankly, it didn't work very well. So the value of that exercise was that it awoke me to some of the challenges that we have from the point of view of an environmental perspective on the things that we take for granted. And frankly, I assumed that the people that were looking after us were looking after us. I a little naive looking back, but I kind of thought, okay, the people that are trying to make sure our water is safe and appropriate, we're doing that. And I lost faith in it as I went through this exercise. I thought, geez, this is a big deal. So at that time, I was doing a part-time master's at the University of Toronto on leadership stuff, and I needed some credits to finish off that exercise. So I decided to take some courses at the Faculty of Environmental Studies at the U of T, and God, that was really depressing. I didn't realize, frankly, some of the big challenges that we're experiencing. The climate change stuff, the water challenge, the pollution, and all of those things. Looking back, it's almost embarrassing to realize how buffered I was from all of that, and didn't think it was anything to do with me. And then I started to realize that it really needed help to address some of these big issues. Governments can do a lot with what the resources that they have, but they really need the resources of business to be able to help accomplish some of the changes that need to be done. But business isn't going to do anything. Frankly, it's not even allowed to do anything unless there's something in it for them. So my curiosity started to get into how do you justify, if you're a business leader, how do you justify doing more than you're already doing on cleaning up your act and doing more than just philanthropy to try to address some of these environmental issues? So that led to me doing my master's thesis on the business case for sustainability. So I did some research on what's in it for a company if they decided to improve their performance on energy, water, material, waste, those kinds of things. And I was pleasantly surprised that, geez, actually, it's pretty good. So contrary to popular belief, this is not a sacrifice to do something about all of this stuff. It also gives you a competitive advantage, which is why I use that phrase for the title of my first book, The Sustainability Advantage. It's not a sacrifice, it's an advantage. So I put some numbers around it, and I provided a spreadsheet to allow the calculations to be done for a specific company, where they can plug in their numbers and do some what ifs and decide whether this is something that they might want to undertake more than they already are.
Yep.
So that was the beginning, and I retired from IBM in 2000, and my advisor suggested that I write a book on this. I thought, are you nuts? That sounds like a lot of work. And secondly, who the heck would read it? And he said,
Guilty.
no, you should think about it. You should think about it. So I retired. I don't golf, so I wasn't quite sure what to do with myself. So I decided, what the heck? I'll convert my thesis into a book, and it came out in 2002. Since then, I've written 4 more books and provide a lot of resources, free open source resources to help people that are working in companies or with companies to be more effective change agents and help their organizations improve their performance on sustainability related stuff, environmental and social related stuff, without it interfering with their ability to make a profit.
Mm.
So a lot of what I do is provide resources for others to use.
Mm-hmm.
These days, I'm using some of them myself in a couple of projects that I'm working on. But my goal, my business model, is to provide these free resources. We can't afford to waste time recreating this stuff to people that are really trying to work with companies to help them improve their impacts on people and planet.
Yeah, and I'll say, at Emerger Strategies, we use your tools, right? I mean, I have to thank you first and foremost for making these open source and to be totally transparent. I mean, I have modeled my business from your work. I saw. I went back to school. My background, just real quick, I installed solar panels. I worked in biodiesel manufacturing. I worked in green building software, and then I decided to create my dream job, which was to marry fly fishing and sustainability, and go after these companies. And after reading the Sustainability Advantage, that really was a light bulb moment. In that it provided a framework so that business executives can understand that this is an investment in their business and not a cost to their business. They can make the business case. So I'll say thank you for your work, and we'll dive into more specifically some of those tools. But I love that you took that approach, and that was a big emphasis. And when I was getting my MBA in sustainable business, we learned about John Elkington and the triple bottom line. And if I remember correctly, the Sustainability Advantage was listed as a resource, was how I discovered your work. And so when I read that, it was like a light bulb. It was like, oh, right, this makes total business sense.
Yeah, John Elkington's work had a big influence in my early understanding of what this stuff was all about. So I basically did a lot of things which others had done amazing research on and writing on and so on. And I took all of that and consolidated into a format that I thought might be more useful with some of the organizations that were trying to improve their performance. But I really think it's important that we understand that businesses are not doing this for charity reasons. They're not doing it for philanthropic reasons. They're not trying to save the world. They're trying to be better businesses. And that's why, despite all of the pushback that we are experiencing these days on the use of the terminology around climate change, sustainability, diversity, equity, inclusion, all that stuff, businesses are still quietly getting on with it because it's in their self-interest to do that.
Right.
It's a smart business thing to do. So, if you're a businessman, why wouldn't you do it? So the business case used to be something which people thought was made up. And I show how for average companies, you can make 51 to 81% more profit than you already are if you simply pay attention to reducing your energy, water, material waste expenses and increasing the productivity of your people and generating more revenue with better products and services, um, and put some numbers around all of those claims. And I really think that we have to connect with businesses in terminology that they understand.
Mm.
I mean, sustainability has got 6 syllables. Profit has 2. So, let's keep it simple.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So I'm curious on from your perspective on the business case for sustainability, how do you explain that to perhaps a skeptical executive?
Yeah, well, you have to use their numbers and understand where they already are on trying to be more efficient in their energy, water, and materials use, and then build on that base on things that they care about for whatever reason. So it's easy for those of us that understand the big picture to want companies to get on with doing something about all of the 18 things that we would normally expect them to pay attention to. And I think we have to get serious about this and narrow it down to 2 or 3 things that they might start with, help them identify what those 2 or 3 things might be, and then help them cost justify
Mhm.
doing a cost benefit analysis,
Mhm.
a project that is going to help them do better than they're already doing in that particular area.
Yeah.
So we should treat this as the way in which a business justifies doing anything that they're not already doing. They do a cost benefit analysis. So let's do a cost benefit analysis and do an ROI of what the project that we are suggesting they undertake would yield. And if it's not good enough, they shouldn't do it.
Right. Simple.
Uh, so it's pretty straightforward. And I don't think we should be looking for them to make exceptions for this stuff. We should provide them with a framework that allows them to do it for all the right reasons, and feel very comfortable justifying to their peers or anybody else that's asking hard-nosed questions that this is a flat out smart business thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's not something special. Uh, it's good business.
So of the business case, the way that I sort of look at it and is, you mentioned energy, waste, water, right? Those are if you conserve water, if you minimize your waste, if you use energy more efficiently, you will reduce your operating expenses.
Exactly.
And can you maybe elaborate more on some of the financial benefits that help make the business case for sustainability?
Yeah, the ones that are normally focused on when a company starts to get into this are the so-called low-hanging fruit of how they can save money on their utility bills or on their expenses and procurement bills. So the 4 low-hanging fruit that they normally look at are saving money on their energy bill, their water bill, their waste bill, and their materials bill.
Mhm.
And of those, the 2 that are usually looked at first are energy and waste,
Yeah.
which are usually ones that have a pretty big price tag associated with them, especially energy. And they're also the easiest ones to do better on. It's
Mhm.
not it's not rocket science to figure out how to do this stuff. And in companies that have accomplished amazing savings on those things, almost to the point in the case of energy where they're producing enough energy for themselves that they've got a little left over and
Yeah.
they can actually sell it back to the grid. So it's a revenue stream rather than an expense. And this it's not hard to do.
Yeah.
The hardest thing is making the decision that you're going to do it. And
Yeah.
once you decide you're going to do it, then just do it. Um, the nice thing about the sustainability initiatives that have been undertaken by companies is they're not quiet about them.
Mm.
They're not secretive about them. They say exactly what they did, how they did it, and the benefits that they got from it.
Right.
It's kind of amazing how open companies are about what to do to get better on these things. So all you have to do is use best practices that other companies have already perfected.
Yeah.
So you start with those things. And then as you get into it, you start to realize your employees actually might be a little excited about the fact that you are paying attention to things that they care about in their private lives, family lives, and so on. They may be concerned about some of these things and be kind of proud to work for a company that's working on issues that they care about,
Yeah.
that this aligns with their values. And that makes them more engaged as employees. And if they're more engaged as employees, they're more productive. And that's an incredible contributor to some of the business case benefits that you can get. They are more productive if they're already working for the company. Some of your hiring costs may be reduced as well because people want to join that kind of company, or your attrition costs of good employees leaving are going to be less as well. And in fact, there's a company in Ontario, in Cambridge, Ontario, called Veriform. It's a metal fabricating company. And for personal reasons, the guy in charge of that company decided that he wanted to reduce his greenhouse gas emissions. The background of that is he saw the original Al Gore movie, An Inconvenient Truth. He
Yeah.
had his first child and was very concerned about the future of the world for his child. So he decided to reduce his contribution to climate change problems. So he started off with a couple of projects and another couple of projects and another couple of projects. And he did over 100 projects over a 5-year period. His profit went up by over 300%.
Wow.
He reduced his greenhouse gases by about 60 to 70%. And he had about $2 million worth of savings as a result of that. Savings.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing it for financial reasons. He was doing it because he was concerned about his daughter's future and his contribution to the problems of climate change. However, a nice offshoot of that was those savings. It
Yeah.
turns out that about half of those savings came from the fact that he was using less energy. He was much more energy efficient. Another 300,000 was coming from the fact that his employees weren't leaving. The turnover in the metal fabricating business is a big challenge because they're highly skilled people, and none of them left. And he figured that he saved about $300,000 of accomplishing the training of new employees and so on. He didn't have to hire new employees. And his employees loved working on these projects that were saving all of this energy. And the other thing that he was surprised about is his maintenance costs dropped like a stone because his equipment was better. Much of it was new and more energy efficient. And that was an unexpected benefit that he got. So he had reduction of his maintenance costs, reduction of his energy costs, and reduction of his attrition costs. So the co-benefits of these things start to ripple through
Yeah.
the company. And once you start, it's frankly hard to stop. You just get into it, and it's fun, it's effective, and it's extremely rewarding, personally as well as financially.
Yeah. I kind of relate it to like a person trying to become the best version of themselves. It's sustainability is like a company continuously improving to try and become the best version of itself.
Right,
And
right. And companies are revisiting what their purpose is, what their values are, and so on, and trying to make sure that their policies and their operations and so on are aligned with their purpose and with their values. And employees respect that.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of untapped potential for companies to really become much, much better, effective, more profitable organizations by paying more attention to these things than perhaps they have in the past.
Well, you may have already mentioned this, but I am curious to get your take on what are maybe some of the most commonly overlooked benefits of sustainability for companies.
Yeah, there are a couple. One of them is the opportunity to make more money, more revenue, more top line benefits. Um, Part of what we're trying to do is to use less materials, which gets into circularity, where you are perhaps selling the service of the product rather than the product itself. You're leasing it. You're using product as a service as an approach. Um, and there's a lot of really good revenue from that kind of approach. In IBM, we leased a lot of computers. Um, in HP these days, they've got printing as a service where they don't actually sell the printers to the the customers. They make them available. They look after the printers on behalf of the customer, and the customer pays a monthly fee for that. So you still own the printer, and you can then use it with other customers afterwards or refurbish it so that it's upgraded to the latest level and refurbish it and so on. So there are revenue streams, financing, services, and also in the procurement area, some of the criteria that are being used in the request for proposal are starting to ask about the extent to which the company is paying attention to things that the customer is concerned about. So in the case of the European Union, for example, they're starting to ask more pointed questions about the supplier's attention to reducing their greenhouse gases. They're really into that in Europe, and good for them
Yeah.
that they are. So what they're suggesting is that they're expecting their suppliers to say where they are on reducing their greenhouse gases, either in line with the so-called Paris Agreement, which says that we're supposed to get down to zero by 2050. So how are you doing on that? And they give points to suppliers who are doing the best on that. And they're also looking for attributes of the products, energy efficiency type attributes and so on, and the greenhouse gases that are associated with the carbon footprint of the product itself. So they're starting to ask questions that are implying that the supplier should be paying attention to these things more than perhaps they already are.
Yeah.
I think procurement is a wonderful way to get the attention of companies that there's something in it for them, especially if they are doing more than their competitors are on these things, to get credit for their efforts to work on issues that are important to their customers. Their customers aren't asking these things just because they're curious. They're asking these things because they are accountable for those carbon footprints of their products and their suppliers. So they need to deal with suppliers that are working on these things the way they expect them to.
Yeah, and I see that in my business in terms of increasingly both big box retailers and specialty fishing and outdoor retailers are now asking their brands for sustainability data because the retailer has its own goals, right? If a retailer like REI has a net zero by 2050 goal, then the suppliers, which are the brands that sell to them, are a huge part of that, of their scope 3 emissions. So they want to know, and same with Walmart and all these other retailers, right? And so they want to know, Are you measuring scope 1 through 3 emissions? Are you reducing your emissions? Have you set targets? And
Right.
so I see that in my work, and it's becoming increasingly common. Where it started with these big box retailers, and now I've spoken with several specialty smaller retailers who are now asking brands, have created their own procurement policies to say, hey, we want to know what you're doing because we don't want to support and sell brands that we don't believe in that contribute negatively to our scope 3 emissions.
Exactly. So when they are deemed to be a supplier that's ahead of the pack on these things, that their opportunity to make money, bring in revenue from that is a pleasant surprise. The second area that's usually a bit of a surprise is the employee productivity area. I think that is entirely overlooked. When you get employees that are energized about what their company is doing, they really want the company to do well so it can do more of the good things that it's doing. And they enjoy working for the company, and they get creative about ways the company can do more than they're already doing internally as well as with their products. And the creativity of the employees is tapped into, and it just mushrooms. There's a ripple effect through the organization. And then the third area that's a bit overlooked is risk avoidance.
Mm.
If they don't start doing something which is going to reduce their cost of energy, water, material, and waste, um, then they should expect that those costs are going to continue to ratchet up each year for whatever reason. And if their competitors are doing something to reduce all of those expenses and they are not, then their competitors are going to be in a better position to price their products in a way that is more aggressive than perhaps they can right now. So risk avoidance is a huge area. And in fact, I would say it is probably the biggest motivator for companies to get into this stuff because banks are starting to ask, how are you doing on reducing your greenhouse gases? And taking that into account when they're deciding what the rate of a particular loan might be to an organization that maybe isn't doing quite as much as they could or should be to avoid being hammered by climate change, either directly or indirectly, their own operations or their customers' ability to continue to buy their products. If they're subject to severe weather events, or the transportation routes between the company and their customers are impacted by severe weather events, or their suppliers are impacted by severe weather events. So it could be upstream or downstream or right where they are. But climate change has enormous potential to really interrupt their business flow directly or indirectly. So being able to minimize those risks, paying attention to these things, configuring your supply chains in a way that are going to allow you to avoid some of these problems and be more resilient, really, really important. So the kind of thinking that goes into all of this is important from a business perspective as you try to figure out how you're going to ride out particular challenges to your business model.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And here in Charleston, we're experiencing sea level rise in real time. Like, I mean, it's we're getting sunny day flooding. And in
Jeez.
fact, to make an example of your point, the one of the hospitals downtown is moving off of the peninsula to a different city nearby, North Charleston, because of the sea level rise risk. And that has implications for tax purposes, for all sorts of things, right? But that's exactly the type of risk that we're talking about. And if you're a business or a brand listening to this, if you aren't aware of mapping out your supply chain and seeing where they are and understanding what some of those risks are related to climate change or water scarcity or anything like that, you're not effectively managing that risk or appropriately
Exactly.
managing that risk.
Exactly. And you could be actually uninsurable. And that's what some of the businesses in California are going through right now. And if you take a look at the extremes, California has had all of them. Too much water, too little water. um, incredible fires. I mean, in Canada, we've had forest fires in every province in the country, right from the west coast to the east coast last summer. We've never had that many forest fires. And thousands of people have had to flee their homes and be put up somewhere else, and then maybe go back to something that isn't there anymore. The ripple effect of all of this, the cost of it, not only for the individuals, but for governments to try to help these businesses and people recover. God, the expense associated with all of that is horrendous and usually not accounted for in a very rigorous way.
Mhm. Yeah, that's yeah. So we're at Emerger Strategies. We're seeing a lot of brands struggle with this and trying to understand it. And um, thanks for your guidance. And that's what we're trying to do as well, is help businesses understand this. There is a business case, and just to kind of summarize what we said here. I mean, you can reduce costs, you can manage risk better, you can increase revenue growth through innovation and more sustainable products and services, and you can attract and retain talent, right? And I mean, all those are either um, positively or negatively affecting your bottom line. And as it turns out, sustainability is a great way to address all of those, right?
We set out with a New Earth project to really start a movement.
It's a global coalition of people who are deeply concerned and want to accelerate the transition away from problematic packaging to more sustainable solutions.
Our entire value proposition was built on helping companies package things better. We were doing sustainability before sustainability was cool. We just called it packaging optimization. And packaging optimization really is about using less. And we built our whole business on that. You know, people send us their products, their goods, and we help them design packaging systems and solutions for the least possible cost, utilizing the least amount of material. Use less is always the right answer.
And that's what I see with companies like a New Earth Project, is it's like, we're just trying to create solutions for big companies and small, that makes it easier for them, cheaper for them, whatever it is, and then has less impact. Not just trying to tell people you should have less impact and making the choice forced on them. Like, make it better for everybody, and it'll make it better for the whole world.
We see the problem, and we are with you.
Right. I totally agree with you. And as you take a look at the potential for all of those improvements that you just listed, the challenge is for an organization to decide what they should start to work on that they're not already working on, that would give them the biggest bang for their buck. Mm-hmm. So that's where an assessment tool that allows them to show how they're already doing on these things is probably the first step. Do a baseline assessment of how they're doing on there are only 18 things that you need to think about from a sustainability point of view. So one of my tools, the basic sustainability assessment tool, is a very simplified version of some of the bigger assessment tools that are out there. I looked at about a dozen of them, the big ones, and they're really good. They're really rigorous. And if you've got people on staff that are really into this stuff, they can answer all of the questions that are in that. The Global Reporting Initiative is the big preferred approach framework for reporting on and assessing these things. But for most small and medium-sized businesses or enterprises, it's way, way, way too complicated. So I took a look at all of those. I took a look at the kinds of questions, and they ask basically about these 18 things, one of which is the governance, the policies that you have to oversee all of this stuff. There are 7 environmental things, as we mentioned before: energy, water, material, waste, greenhouse gases, the attributes of things that you bring into the business, and then 5 things on how you're treating your employees, and 5 things on how you're treating the community or your impacts on the community. So planet, environment, and people work for you, employees, and the community and society at large. And so what I did with the basic sustainability assessment tool is I reworded some of the questions from these others in a way that makes them more accessible, easier to understand for small businesses, to give them a sense of how they're already doing on all of these things. Because they may be surprised at how well they're already doing on some of these things, but there may be an opportunity to do better on some things that they care about. So you end up with a dashboard of a percent progress that you're making towards where best available science says you should be on each of those things. So it gives you a sense of your progress towards the goal of being really, really good on these things. And then you can take a look at the dashboard of the percents and you say, well, this percent's a little lower than I'm comfortable with. Maybe we should work on that one. So you choose from these results which 2 or 3 things you want to work on, engage your employees in that, get their agreement that those are the things they would like to work on as well, and make it happen. And then once you've done that, do another assessment and decide which ones you want to do next, and so on. But as you take a look at the opportunities to do better, it would be kind of nice if you could do a little pro forma on what it's going to cost to do something on any of the things that you care about. So that's where the cost benefit analysis comes in. And I've got a tool called the Sustainability ROI Workbook, which is an Excel-based tool that allows you to do a cost benefit analysis of improving an area that you feel is appropriate for you to undertake. So first of all, assess, basic sustainability assessment tool, free open source tool, and then decide which ones you want to work on, cost justify doing that with the Sustainability ROI Workbook, and get on with it. So it's a straight business approach to doing anything that you're not already doing.
Yeah, and I love that, and I'll say for anyone listening, the basic sustainability assessment tool, the BSAT, I partnered with the American Sport Fishing Association, the American Fly Fishing Trade Association, and created sustainability toolkits for their members who needed guidance, right? And so I used the BSAT as a resource because it's a free open source tool. And then if a company needs additional help, I'll use the ROI workbook to help them make a decision to say, well, I think here's how this can make sense for you. So it's really an incredible tool. And what I love about it is that because I've gone through, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing. I love B Corps. So I'm just using this as an example. But that assessment is very rigorous and very time consuming. And I primarily work with small to medium companies who don't have internal sustainability folks. And so for them, they're trying to understand, hey, like, I want to compare how we're doing, and I don't really know what to measure and what to put. And so it's really a perfect tool to help someone, and it takes an hour or less. And you get a really good snapshot to compare how you're doing compared to how the rest of the biggest companies in the world are measuring themselves against sustainability. So it's really, can't recommend that tool enough.
You mentioned the B Corps, and for those that aren't familiar with B Corps, a B Corp, think of B as a benefit corporation, that they're in business for the benefit of not only their bottom line, but also people and planet. So they're purpose-driven organizations. I'm a certified B Corp. I have been for probably about 15 years now. I'm on the B Corp Standards Advisory Council, which helps to decide which questions are going to be asked in the assessment tool. We've just gone through a 3-year reorganization of that questionnaire to change the way in which it is scored and so on, and the questions that are asked. And it's really, really, really good. It's extremely rigorous. It's very complete. It's really, really good. That's the good news. The bad news is it's really, really good. It asks really detailed questions about everything. And you really have to want to be a B Corp to go through it, to be quite frank with you.
Yeah.
So being familiar with that was really helpful as I got into creating the basic sustainability assessment tool. And the other major input to that was an exercise I undertook with some folks in England, in London, which is developing something which we call the Future Fit Business Benchmark. Mm-hmm. And the Future Fit Business Benchmark is a benchmark of where a company needs to be if it's going to be fit for the future economy on the planet. And we took a look at a whole bunch of other frameworks that were out there before we created that one. It's the only science-based benchmark. What you're benchmarking against is where best available science says you should be on all of these 18 things. So on pollution, for example, where should you be? Zero pollution. On waste, where should you be? Zero waste. On energy, only renewable energy. So it's kind of it's 100%. That's your goal on all of those things. So it's rigorous, and we came up with those things for both the social as well as the environmental things. And it's really, really good. There are 39 worksheets that help you do all the calculations. And if you've got a cast of thousands that are into this stuff working for you already, it's really, really good. Yeah. But for mere mortals, it's a little challenging. So I took that and I shrank it down into something which I called the Advanced Sustainability Assessment Tool, which was a more condensed version of those 39 worksheets into a couple. And even that was way too complicated. And I thought, okay, for the 99.7% of the businesses in Canada, and it's 0.8% in the US, that are small and medium-sized businesses, less than 500 employees, we need something that's just a little better. And in fact, if you drop it down to 100 employees or less, 98% of the companies in the US, Canada, Europe, the world are small companies, 100 employees or less. Wow. Don't have the luxury of having experts on sustainability on staff. So let's cut a little slack here and give them a taste test of how they're going to assess on these things. And that was the origin of the basic sustainability assessment tool. And I think it's really important that we be fair to organizations that are new to this and help them understand that we're not trying to help them save the world. We're trying to help them be better businesses. Yeah. More successful businesses. And that mantra is very easy to get away from as you get more and more engrossed in this stuff. Well, you have to keep coming back to this. The reason that this is smart is that it's a good business thing to do. And if it isn't, don't do it. Right. I mean, that's what the cost benefit analysis is intended. If it doesn't meet your standards for payback period and so on, and you're not going to make an exception for this, then don't. Right. But it gives you a lens on this, which is the kind of lens that you need to. I remember I talked to a financial executive for a company in Seattle. Many years ago, I was out doing a bunch of talks in Seattle, and there was a green team working for a company in Seattle that was having a lot of trouble getting approval from their CFO to do some of the things they thought they should be doing. And they asked me to come and have a talk to the CFO. And it was supposed to be a half day, and then it turned out to be a quarter day, and then it turned out to be coffee, 15 minutes. But I basically asked him why he wasn't supportive of what the green team folks were asking him to do. And he said, well, maybe I don't understand it, but I don't think, I can't see how this is going to be good for the company. So I said, so if you've got 3 projects that are being presented to you, and they're all looking for about the same amount of money, How do you decide which of those projects you're going to support if you've only got enough money to support one? No, he said, it's pretty simple. We just do a CapEx request form on each of them, and whatever one has the best payback period gets the money. Pretty straightforward. I said, what was that form? He said, CapEx, capital expenditure request form. It's how we look at all the projects. So I turned to the green team. I said, are you familiar with that form? They had never heard of that cost benefit analysis form. Never heard of it. I thought, oh. So I asked the CFO, would you mind sharing a copy of that form so we could take a look at it? He said, oh, sure. Goes off to his office, comes back 30 seconds later. It's a one-page form. It is not tricky. It is not tricky. So I said, would you mind if we took this form and took one of their projects that they're thinking would be a good thing and translated that project into your form? He said, oh, that's fine. Sure, go for it. So the rest of the morning, the green team and I did that for one of the projects. He came back at lunch, made a couple of really good suggestions. I had to leave. He had to leave. About 3 o'clock that afternoon, the green team goes into his office with his form and their project on his form. He approves the project. Same project, same numbers that he had turned down before, except it's his form.
Yeah, I love that.
I think we need to respect the decision-making process that companies have and use that when we are encouraging them to do something that they're not already doing.
Well, let me ask you this. That brings up a question that I had is, why do you think sustainability feels so overwhelming for so many companies?
Yeah, I think we're not focused enough on what it is that we are trying to get them to do something on that they're not already doing. Sustainability is a big ball of wax. I mean, it's everything, and that's overwhelming for most people. I think we have to talk their language. If they've got a problem in operations that is too much waste or energy or water related, start with that. Whatever it is that they think needs to be improved, start with that. I remember talking to Amory Lovins, who to me is one of the top 5 gurus on sustainability in the planet. He founded the Rocky Mountain Institute. The guy's friggin' brilliant. He's just brilliant. So I was interviewing him for one of the books that I wrote. And before we get into the questions, I said, by the way, what do you call sustainability? Long pause. He says, well, I never use the S word. Sustainability. God, my books, my titles, my website, it's all got the word sustainability.
This podcast.
I said, oh, really? I said, so what do you call it? He said, oh, I call it whatever they want to call it. If they want to call it water, we work on water. If they want to work on waste, we work on waste. Whatever they want to call it, that's what we start with. He said, at some point I may earn the right to expand the conversation a little bit, but I don't use that word with folks that we're trying to engage initially because it's too much.
Yeah.
We need to zero in on what it is that they want to pay attention to and translate our language into their terminology and their priorities.
Wow. Well, I've got a little bit of a similar story to tell with someone else. I've reached out to another person in sustainability that I admire, and his name's Kevin Minette. He works with Blue Sign, and we were having a conversation just about sustainability over the phone, and he had an interesting perspective on it. He said, I think if we had to redo it, I would probably call sustainability just excellence. It's really the pursuit of excellence that some companies are willing to pursue. And if they do, they get a lot of benefits from it. And I thought that was a good way to think about it.
Yeah, and a lot of the things from the point of view of Ducks Unlimited or anglers and hunters and so on, is the protection of the conditions that are necessary for their sport, their activity to take place, whether it's protection of wetlands or whatever. Um, and I think we need to use the terminology that they use and help them see that the efforts that we're encouraging them to be a part of are going to lead to the protection of the continuation of something that is important to them. We may never use the word sustainability. Maybe we call it innovation, maybe we call it capacity building, maybe we call it protection, whatever. But asking someone to undertake a somewhat daunting effort to do everything at once is just nuts.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have to share a couple of stories related to fishing and outdoor brands. Um, excuse me. So I use the basic sustainability assessment tool with a client, Z-Man Fishing Products. They manufacture soft plastic fishing lures here in South Carolina, right outside of Charleston. And so we did the assessment and then we collected their data and took a look at their energy data and their energy costs and said, you're really using quite a lot of energy and it's costing you quite a lot of money. But they just thought this is the cost of doing business. We manufacture 24/7 and our energy costs are high. So after doing some digging, hey, do you own the building? It's got a flat roof. I know from installing solar panels previously that, you could position the panels so that they're south facing, so they take advantage of this and all this. Anyway, long story short, through energy efficiency upgrades that they did, like LED lighting and the addition of a solar array on their roof, they eliminated an $80,000 a year power bill and they created a new revenue stream because the energy company was paying them for the excess they're putting into the grid. And here, and I'm just using this to share, like, this is what sustainability means to me. And I learned from Bob, thankfully, is that, like, hey, these are not cost, right? This is an investment in your business. You've eliminated a power bill, you created a revenue stream, you reduced harmful greenhouse gas emissions that improve the lives of the fish that your business depends on.
Wow.
That's
wow.
Right. I mean,
what a great story. What a great story.
So
Good for you.
Well, thanks. But thanks to you, I should say. So I can't take credit for it, but I just used some tools that were available, and that was an example of that. And I think that there's so many brands out there who, which I get. I'm a small business owner. I mean, I understand. My health insurance just went up 29%. It's crazy, right? And so, like, they're dealing with an increase in tariffs. But the question that I have to those who are not taking action right now is, do you think Z-Man Fishing Products is a more resilient brand and able to absorb some of those higher tariffs because of the investment they made in solar? And the answer is yes. And so I think that that's another thing that's overlooked is businesses don't, like, this helps protect your business from the unforeseen costs that may be coming that you're not aware of. And so they're able to more easily absorb it and be more resilient.
Exactly. That risk part.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah. And also just one other little anecdote. Part of another book that I wrote was the Sustainability Champions Guidebook, which is how to lead change. And there are a few practices, one of which is meet them where they are. Meet them where they are with their language, their policies, their priorities, whatever it is that's important to them. Use their language. That's the approach that basically Amory Lovins was suggesting. Call it whatever they want to call it. I had another experience that reinforced that. I was at a conference a few years ago in Saskatchewan, and it was being held at a university, and we were being shuttled back and forth between the hotel and the university each morning. And I had occasion to sit beside somebody I hadn't met before, introduce myself. Turned out he was the mayor of Fort McMurray. Fort McMurray is the town that is close to the oil sands in northern Alberta. He was the mayor of the town that the workers lived in, most of them, that were working in the oil sands. So I said, "Oh, terrific. What do you think of the Kyoto Protocol?" And at that time, that was the international standard that we were trying to meet on reducing greenhouse gases. Well, it was like lighting a fuse. He just exploded. He just thought it was a total waste of time, travesty, a bunch of foreign countries trying to tell him what to do. He just went ballistic. So I said, "Oh, okay." So the second question was, I guess you're not too concerned about climate change. And again, he just exploded. He just said, this is such a myth. Of course, I don't care about it. It's just a left-wing attempt to slow down big business and yada, yada, yada. Just so I thought, oh, okay, this isn't going very well. So my third attempt was, so I said, you're not too concerned about the greenhouse gases being emitted from the operation of the oil sands. He said, "Of course I am." I said, "Really? Why?" He said, "It's pollution. Pollution is bad. So yeah, we've got to reduce the carbon dioxide, greenhouse gases." And I thought, wow. To me, all of those things were the same thing, but
Right.
to him, pollution was something he was dead against, and he thought polluters should pay for the cleanup. So it was just another reinforcement that the start of the conversation is so important as to how we feel our way through the terminology that's going to be useful in the effort to engage somebody in something. And I relearn that lesson about once a week.
I absolutely love that. And what an interesting way to think about it too, right? Okay, well, how do you feel about pollution? I don't like it. All right. Call it whatever you want, but either way, we're going to reduce your cost and the pollution.
So in the business case, you want to make more profit? We got some ideas on how to make profit. Not save the world, make more profit.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Bob, I know we're coming up. We got a few more minutes here, so I wanted to get an opportunity to ask you, what gives you hope or optimism about sustainability and sustainable business for the future?
Yeah, I think in North America, we're kind of fixated on how we're doing in Canada and the US, understandably, because that's where we are. What's encouraging me is what's happening in other parts of the world, especially China, of all places. The efforts that they're going through to convert to solar energy, they are the biggest producers of and users of solar energy in the world, including for electric vehicles, trucks. They now have the most electric trucks, heavy duty trucks on the planet. And what's happening in India, what's happening in Bangladesh, what's happening in Europe, regardless of the pushback from the oil and gas lobby on climate change, the transition to renewable energy is much further along than most of us suspect. It's happening, and it's happening for business reasons. It's just flat out smart business to do the kind of thing that you described. So that's what gives me hope. This is unstoppable. Of course, we all try to nudge it a little faster, but it's going to happen. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. And I think it's exciting to be part of that transition.
Yeah, well, I just, I want to take this opportunity to thank you. I have learned so much from your books and your tools, and I use your tools.
Fantastic.
and I've made some changes and made them more specific to fly fishing and fishing
Perfect.
and outdoor brands. And
Perfect.
they're just incredibly simple, useful tools that if you are looking for those, where can folks find those, Bob, from your sites?
So my website is sustainabilityadvantage.com. So it's got the word sustainability in it, sustainabilityadvantage.com. And all of the tools are on there. I've got about a dozen tools, actually about 24 tools that are free and open source that you're welcome to take full advantage of and do exactly what Rick described he did, which is to take it and adapt it to their particular situation and their purposes. That's why they're open source. So yeah, go for it and feel free to exploit the heck out of anything that's useful to you there.
Love that. Well, Bob, again, thanks so much. I really enjoyed your insights in this conversation, and I hope to stay in touch and ping some ideas off of you as well.
Thanks for the opportunity, and good fishing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, maybe we'll have a part 2. We'll talk more fishing.
Take care, Rick.
All right. Well, special thanks to Bob for his time and for everything he has done to demonstrate the business case for sustainability and sharing his sustainability tools with everyone. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to head over to emergerstrategies.com for all of your sustainability consulting needs, and check out our new The Compliance Ready Brand Blueprint, which is designed to get your brand sustainability house in order in 30 days or less.